Yes, and this time injury was added to insult. DeAndre Francois having to leave the game with a left knee injury with just about 5 minutes left to play was a capper on the night for Florida State in losing to Alabama 24-7. Mark Rogers TV here to break it down. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel for the best in college football coverage. And this was not the best of games as many expected it to be, but Alabama is a 7-point favorite. Late on the defense, and the Avalanche came in the third quarter of a very closely contested game. So Jalen Hurts throws for 96 yards, 10 of 19 passing. So that wasn't it. The Alabama rushing attack only went for 4.1 yards per carry. So that wasn't it. It was Alabama staples of defense, and this time, great plays on the special teams by Alabama, miscues by Florida State that started in the kicking game and then moved to the offense and the right arm of DeAndre Francois that meant the Avalanche and the breaking of the back of the Florida State Seminoles, who for most of this game stood up to Alabama toe-to-toe and played like a national championship contender. Damian Harris ripped off a 34-yard run on the first play from scrimmage, and it looked like maybe Alabama was just going to be too physical, too big, and too tough, and too brutal and punishing in the running game for Florida State, as many had feared. But Florida State, and this would become a theme of the night, stood up to the Alabama offense, shut them down, and held it right there. There was a missed field goal, and there was no score. DeAndre Francois needed to be at his best, and he was not. He showed to be just as tough as we saw during his true freshman season, in which he stood up to some of the best defenses in college football with a weak offensive line and stood up to punishment week after week after week, culminating with a great closing drive in the Orange Bowl against Michigan, another game in which he was beat up, and he was beat up again in this game. But he needed to be as sharp as he was in the big moments last season, and he wasn't. There was a 4th-and-2 play in which the wide receiver didn't turn around, and he was wide open, and Francois got thrown for a loss on a key 4th-and-2 play in which Sean Dion Hamilton threw him for a loss, and the play before was the 3rd-and-2 in which he had the guy open, and he missed him on an easy throw. Jalen Hurts making some plays with his legs, not necessarily his arm, except for the big 53-yarder up top to Calvin Ridley to give Alabama a 10-7 lead after Florida State had scored. We were concerned, many, about the Florida State wide receiver core after losing most of its productivity from last season. But guys like Auden Tate and Keith Gavin, they showed us that they are ready for primetime. They played rather well. George Campbell only caught 1 ball for 21 yards, but it was rather impressive. So Florida State, all those star rankings next to the recruiting numbers for the Florida State wide receivers who have yet to show anything at this level, well, they were thrown into the fire their first game, and they made some plays. But this seemed to be the theme in the first half, at least. In the second half, Florida State got completely shut down and just caved in offensively. But in the first half, in DeAndre Francois throwing for almost 200 yards, they made plays each and every drive. They would make about 3 pass plays of 15 to 18 yards and get in position, and then Bama's defense would smother. Cam Akers only had 30 yards on 10 carries. He does look like the real deal, though. When given a little bit of space, he made some top-notch Alabama defenders look silly in the open field. But overall, Bama, too many athletes and too aggressive, too experienced in spots along the defensive front, but just too talented for Florida State's offensive line. And that was the first big key of the game, as we expected, that the Alabama front seven would be too much for the Florida State offensive line. Still the weak link on this team. We'll have to see them play some lesser opponents. They may have faced the best front seven in college football. 10-7, though, and Jimbo Fisher felt really good about his team, and then it all caved in on him. You had the fumbled kickoff by Keith Gavin. Tremendous play by number 8, Dylan Moses, on the Alabama special team that stripped the ball loose, and Alabama was set up in Florida State territory. But the Seminoles defense, which I hailed as possibly the best in college football entering this game, I could still probably make that claim. Despite the 24-7 score, the Florida State defense was phenomenal in this game. Time and time again, put in a position, backed up at their own 20-25-yard line. They stood up tall, and they did after that kickoff fumble. They did after the blocked punt. The blocked punt by Minka Fitzpatrick. Well, actually, Fitzpatrick blocked the field goal at the end of the first half that would have made it 10-10. So it was Alabama special teams that took hold of this game. Yeah, Damian Harris with a blocked punt, who had a nice little rushing game at 73 yards on 8 carries, also blocked the punt, as Alabama likes to put their starting players on special teams. But Josh Sweat and Derwin James made plays following the blocked punt that kept Alabama out of the end zone and still within striking distance at 13-7. So despite two huge special teams gaffes, and if you go back to the last play of the first half, 3 consecutive special teams wins for Alabama, block punt, block field goal, and fumble on the kickoff return, it was still a 13-7 ball game. Then Francois had 2 really poor decisions. The first one, most notably, down the right sideline. Then the second play, he motioned for after the play that the wide receiver should have come back to the football. He throws the second interception, and it was game, set, and match at that point. Florida State's defense, again, exceptional. Up until the 9-minute mark of the game, these two teams were even in total yardage. It was all about mistakes and key opportunities that were seized by Alabama on special teams and on defense. Alabama's the best team in the nation, and still we see otherwise proven on the field against a Florida State team that I still believe to be one of the top 5 teams in college football. Alabama over Florida State. Hopefully, DeAndre Francois is fine and ready to go and will finish this season for Florida State. He left the game, was not able to put weight on his left knee with about 5 minutes to play. Those are my thoughts on the Crimson Tide over the Noles 24-7. Again, follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we will discuss and debate college football right here on Mark Rogers TV.